Rayan parked his truck on the gravel edge of Maplewood Estates. A place that looked like it had been plucked out of a magazine, neat lawns, stone mailboxes, and an HOA so strict that even the mailbox flags had to be the same color. He'd finally closed on his property, a corner lot that he'd been saving for years to buy. It wasn't just a house to him. It was his first piece of land, his own space to breathe and build a little garden sanctuary. But as he stepped out of the truck and stretched in the crisp Saturday morning air, his excitement dimmed into confusion. Something didn't look right. A shiny new white vinyl fence ran clean and straight between his property and the one next door. It was tall, at least 6 feet, and gleamed under the sunlight like a line drawn by someone too eager to claim territory. Rayan squinted, pulling the plat map out of the folder he'd brought along. He traced his finger over the boundaries, then looked back at the fence. According to the survey map, the fence was not supposed to be there, not even close. It sliced right into his backyard, about 10 feet into his land. He walked the line, measuring with his tape just to be sure, his boots crunching against the dry grass. The closer he looked, the more obvious it became. Whoever had put up that fence hadn't just made a small mistake. They'd built nearly half the length across his lot. A voice in his head told him to stay calm. Maybe it was an honest mix-up. Maybe the builder got the measurements wrong. He tucked the map under his arm and walked toward the neighbor's house, a big two-story with hanging flower baskets, a polished driveway, and a gold welcome sign by the door. Before he could knock, the door swung open. A woman stood there, perfectly groomed, sunglasses perched on her nose, a little white poodle in her arms. She looked him over like a store clerk, sizing up a customer who didn't belong. "Yes," she said, her tone sharp enough to slice bread. "Hi, Rayan began politely. "I'm Rayan Malik, your new neighbor. I just moved into the lot next door. I think there might be a mistake with the new fence." "Oh, that," she interrupted with a scoff. "No mistake. That fence is exactly where it belongs. I had it installed myself last month." He blinked, surprised at her confidence. "Right, well, the thing is, according to the county's records, the property line runs a bit farther on your side. The fence looks like it's built on my land." She gave a short laugh, shaking her head. "Sweetheart, I've lived here for 12 years. Everyone in the HOA knows the property lines. I'm the vice president, by the way. That fence has been planned and approved." Rayan frowned slightly. "Approved? I haven't seen any HOA documentation about that." "Oh, that's because it's none of your concern," she said, her voice syrupy now, as if she were talking to a child. "You're new. You'll learn how things work here. I wanted a consistent look around the community, so I had it placed where it makes sense. You're welcome." He paused, trying to keep his temper in check. "I appreciate uniformity, but that's still part of my property. I think it'd be best if we check the boundary markers together. I can show you the survey report." Karen's smile tightened like a noose. "Listen, darling, you might want to fit in before you start accusing people of stealing land. The fence is staying. It looks perfect where it is. Have a nice day." Before Rayan could respond, she turned on her heel and disappeared inside, slamming the door behind her. He stood there for a moment, the sound of her dog barking faintly from behind the glass. He had just met his first HOA Karen. The next morning, Rayan found bright red private property, no trespassing, signs zip, tied to the fence. Each one faced his side, as if mocking him. He could almost hear her smug voice in his head. That was when he decided to stop asking nicely. He called the county office and requested an official boundary survey. A week later, a man in a fluorescent vest and a cap pulled up in a dusty truck. "Boundary verification for Lot 41 and 42, he asked. "That's me," Rayan said, handing him the papers. They got to work, planting orange flags, driving in metal stakes, measuring every inch of the line. The surveyor was meticulous, checking each coordinate with a GPS unit. The sound of his tools clicking against the ground drew Karen out almost immediately. She stormed across the lawn, clutching her poodle and glaring like he'd parked on her roses. "Excuse me, what do you think you're doing on my property?" The surveyor didn't even look up. "Surveying," Mr. Malik requested it. "You can't do that without HOA approval," she snapped. "That's private land." Rayan stepped forward calmly. "Actually, it's my land, and I don't need HOA approval to confirm that." Her face turned red. "This is harassment. I'll have you both reported." "Please do," Rayan said evenly. "I'll have the official report ready for them." She glared, muttered something about people who don't understand community standards, and stormed back into her house. The survey took the entire afternoon. When the last orange flag went down, Rayan could see the truth as plain as day. The fence was built a full 9 feet into his property. The surveyor didn't even have to say it, but he did anyway, his tone professional but sympathetic. "She's going to have to move it. You've got the paperwork now. File it with the county and they'll take it from there." Rayan thanked him and took the sealed report like it was a small victory. The next morning, he dropped a copy in Karen's mailbox with a polite note attached. "Per county survey, the fence currently encroaches on my property by 2 feet. I'd like to resolve this peacefully. Before escalating further, please contact me within 7 days to discuss relocation." He didn't get a call. Instead, he got silence and a new camera mounted on Karen's porch, pointing directly at his yard. When he finally caught her outside later that week, she pretended not to see him. But Rayan wasn't deterred. He knew the law was on his side now. A week later, the county registered the encroachment officially, marking it as a violation. The HOA couldn't ignore it anymore, no matter how much Karen waved her title around. As he sat on his porch that evening, watching the last rays of sunset glint off that gleaming white fence, Rayan couldn't help but smile faintly. She thought she was protecting her property, but soon that fence would cost her more than she ever imagined. ChatGPT said the weeks that followed the survey report turned Maplewood Estates into a quiet battlefield. The once peaceful neighborhood where gossip usually revolved around lawn care and bake sales now buzzed with whispers about the fence fiasco. Karen tried to keep up appearances, but her confident smile had started to crack. Everyone knew something was wrong. The county had marked her fence with red flags, and that meant trouble. Rayan stayed calm through it all. He didn't yell, didn't post on the community forum, didn't take sides in the HOA drama. He just went about his days waiting for the inevitable. The report had been filed, the evidence was undeniable, and now it was only a matter of time before the HOA had to face it. One evening, a note appeared in everyone's mailbox: "Emergency HOA meeting, attendance mandatory." It was printed on official letterhead, bold and urgent. Rayan knew exactly what it was about. He arrived early to the clubhouse, a modern brick building that smelled faintly of lemon polish and old coffee. A long oak table dominated the room, surrounded by folding chairs. Karen was already there when he walked in, wearing a crisp white blazer and holding a stack of papers. She looked furious. Her poodle sat in a carrier under the table, occasionally yipping as if to echo her outrage. When the rest of the board arrived, the HOA president, a calm man named Mr. Whitmore, cleared his throat. "Thank you all for coming," he said. "We're here to discuss a boundary dispute between residents, specifically between MS Karen Saunders and Mr. Rayan Malik." Karen leaned forward immediately. "This is absolutely ridiculous," she snapped. "That fence has been there for months. It's part of the aesthetic standard I've maintained for years. The only problem here is that this new neighbor is trying to cause trouble." Rayan stayed quiet, hands folded. Whitmore adjusted his glasses. "We've reviewed the county's survey report, MS Saunders. It clearly shows your fence encroaches 9 feet onto Mr. Malik's property. This isn't a matter of opinion, it's a matter of law." Karen's jaw dropped. "That report is wrong. Those surveyors probably used outdated equipment. Everyone knows the property line is where it's always been." "Actually," another board member interjected, flipping through her notes, Records from the original neighborhood plans confirm the line matches the new survey. Your fence is definitely not in compliance." Karen's face flushed bright red. "So what? You expect me to tear down a perfectly good fence over a few feet of dirt? The HOA can handle this. You've got funds for community issues." "The HOA isn't responsible for private encroachments," Whitmore said evenly. "And since you built the fence without proper board approval, this falls entirely on you." Rayan could feel the tension tightening the air. Karen's hands trembled slightly as she shuffled her papers, desperate for an argument. "This is absurd. I followed all the guidelines. I even sent an email to the design committee before the installation." "We checked," said Whitmore. "There's no record of that email, and no official approval was given. You'll need to remove the fence within 30 days or face fines and potential legal action from both the HOA and Mr. Malik." The room fell silent for a moment, save for the faint scratching of the poodle inside the carrier. Karen's voice cracked when she finally spoke. "Do you have any idea what that will cost me? $40,000, maybe $50,000. You can't expect me to pay for something this ridiculous." Rayan leaned forward, his tone calm but firm. "Karen, I offered to resolve this peacefully months ago. I even said I'd help pay part of the removal. You refused. I don't want a fight. I just want my property back." For a split second, Karen's expression softened, but pride overpowered reason. She looked away and scoffed. "This is unbelievable. You people are siding with him because he's new and you're trying to look fair. This whole board is corrupt. Enough." Whitmore said sharply, banging his gavel on the table. "This isn't personal. The rules are clear. You have 30 days. Karen pushed her chair back with a screech and stormed out of the clubhouse, her heels echoing across the tile floor. The poodle barked the whole way out. After she left, the tension in the room dissolved. A few members looked at Rayan with sympathetic smiles. "You handled that better than most people would have," one said quietly. He nodded. "It's not about winning. I just want to make things right." Over the next month, Maplewood Estates witnessed what could only be described as poetic justice. Construction trucks arrived at Karen's house one morning, and by noon, the sound of drills, saws, and hammering filled the air. Piece by piece, her pristine white fence came down. Panels leaned against her driveway like fallen dominoes, and piles of debris grew along the curb. Karen stood outside most of the time, her arms crossed, glaring at the workers and barking orders that no one listened to. Her once perfect lawn now looked like a war zone. Tire marks, dug-up soil, and broken sprinkler heads scattered across what used to be her pride and joy. Rayan watched from his own porch, quietly sipping coffee. He hadn't meant for it to come to this, but he couldn't deny the satisfaction of seeing the law finally balance things out. A few neighbors came by to chat. "Guess she learned the hard way," one older man said, chuckling. "She's been bossing people around for years. About time someone stood up to her." Rayan smiled politely but said nothing. He wasn't one to gloat. It took 3 full weeks to remove the fence completely. When the final post was pulled out, it left behind a line of dead, pale grass, the exact boundary that once separated arrogance from humility. Rayan decided to plant a row of wildflowers there, the same kind he remembered from his childhood near the lake. They'd bloom in spring, soft and bright, a quiet reminder that peace could grow from even the ugliest conflicts. A few days later, a delivery truck stopped in front of Karen's house. The driver handed her an envelope. She opened it on the porch, and her face turned pale. Inside was the final bill, $45,000 for fence removal, labor, and property restoration. She tried to appeal through the HOA, but they refused to get involved. Word spread fast. Some neighbors whispered that she'd even threatened to sue, but no one believed she'd win. One evening, Rayan was outside adjusting his garden lights when he saw her step out onto her porch. She looked tired, worn down. For the first time since he'd met her, she didn't look defiant, just defeated. Their eyes met briefly and she gave a stiff nod. He returned it quietly. Maybe he thought that was her version of an apology. A few days later, another truck arrived, this one for Rayan. It carried wood panels for a new fence, one he'd designed himself, positioned exactly along the proper boundary. The driver laughed as he unloaded the boards. "Heard about the lady next door," he said. "Guess she won't be telling you where to put this one, huh?" Rayan chuckled softly. "Not this time. This fence will stand where it belongs." As he worked into the evening, setting the first posts, the sunset cast long golden streaks across the lawn. The hammering echoed gently, rhythmic and calm. On the other side, Karen's house was silent. No barking dog, no shouting, just quiet. By the time the stars began to peek through the fading sky, Rayan stepped back to look at his progress. The new fence wasn't grand or flashy, just simple, sturdy, and honest. It stood exactly where it should, marking not just the line of his land, but the boundary between fairness and entitlement. He smiled to himself, wiping his hands on his jeans. For the first time since moving in, Maplewood felt like home.